And we are back. This is the Field of 68 After Dark. We are on Sirius XM channel 84. That is the ESPNU station. You can find us streaming on YouTube. You can find us streaming on Twitter. Please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit that follow button. All of that stuff really does help us grow the channel. All right. We're going to talk a little bit about our it's a game. It's called First Weekend, Second Weekend, Third Weekend. That's producer Greg Waddell's brainchild. We're going to start out with Kansas and Kentucky because we got to talk a little bit about that game. And I'm just kind of curious, first and foremost, guys, how worried are you about Kansas? Because we can talk at length about Kentucky, but I think the bigger storyline might actually be how much Kansas has struggled, RC, and how bad they've looked with the issues that they have at the point guard and at the five.
That was an ass kicking. Let's just call it what it was. That was an ass kicking. Like, I didn't see that coming. I thought we had a game and we had anything but that. I mean, from tip to the whistle I thought was pretty bad. I'm not going to jump off the ship. I just believe in Bill Self. I think he'll figure it out. But Abaji is a player of the year candidate in my opinion. But I'm wavering a little bit. I'm a little concerned after that. You get beat that bad. That game was. I was expecting it just to be closer, and I just didn't see it. I'm speechless with that one. I can't defend it. I mean, it's hard to defend a team to get drilled like that at home. I mean, that was you could have turned that one off at half and never cut it back on.
Mm-hmm. I would consider Kansas the second weekend team right now, and the reason why I don't think they're a Final Four team right now is like I don't think they're that talented. Like outside of Ochai Agbaji. Like Jalen Wilson looks average every time I watch him play. This is a guy that after the first semester last year, people were talking as a first round pick, and he looks average out there. Remy Martin does not look like Arizona State Remy Martin. David McCormick, again, at some point we got to stop laying eggs in big games here. I mean, he had 3 points and 1 rebound in this game. You want to prove you're not among the best centers in college basketball? You do that against Oscar Tshiebwe.
Let's call it what it was. He was completely overmatched.
Absolutely.
Let's just call that what it was. Like that, he was completely overmatched and shouldn't be putting those conversations again. I'm sorry, but let's just call that what it is. He was overmatched.
And I like DeJuan Harris. I think he's a nice player, good defender, smart. Is he a starter on a Final Four team? I don't think so. Like
I think in certain situations he could be. I don't think that it works when you don't have a 5-man, like especially for Bill Self. What Bill Self wants to do is kind of run his stuff and find ways to manufacture seals for the big guy inside. So all he has to do is catch the ball and dunk it. When you don't have a 5-man that can do that, then you need your Frank Mason or your Devontae Graham or your superstar point guard to be able to create something for you. Because right now you have two of the best wing finishers in all of college basketball, Ochai Agbaji and Christian Brown. But those dudes aren't going to be like their game is not creating on their own. Their game is taking advantage of a closeout or knocking down an open shot or doing something in transition or finishing off a lob. That's just not, they're not built to be able to go out and get it themselves. They're not Johnny Davis. They're not Jaden Ivey. That's not what they do. And so Kansas just doesn't have anyone that can kind of get them into their actions. It also shows up on the defensive end of the floor, if we're being frank, because let's just talk about Kentucky, man, because I think that they are the most well put together team in college basketball when Keon Brooks plays the way that he did on Saturday. They have a guy that can kill you at the 4. They have the best shooter in the SEC at the 3 in Kellen Grady. They have a lottery pick at the 2 in Ty Washington. They have a guy in Severe Wheeler that has figured it out. RC, like I was very concerned about what Severe was going to be coming into this season and after about the first month. And he's been really effective in transition, and he's found a way in the half court to get it done better than I expected. I got to give the kid credit.
We have to, because I was brutal about his turnovers. I was concerned thinking they'd never become as good as they have, because he's a career guy averaging almost 3 to 4 turnovers a game, and he was doing that in the big games early. But he's, like you said, he's figured it out. I mean, I think he's figured out when he needs to be aggressive and when it's time to score. I'm still concerned. I'll say this. I'll be concerned when they play an opponent that I think just allows him to shoot. That just says, just sits in the paint and say, you shoot. I mean, for 40 minutes, just that'll be someone will do that at some point. Some team that comes in that plays against them. I'm sure it'll happen in conference play that's just less talented and just going to say, hey, because that's the only guy you can do it with. And you're just going to have to sit in the paint and then see how they adjust to it. No different than how, because that's what Notre Dame did. Like when we look at this team now, we look at Notre Dame, we're going to think like there's no way in the world Notre Dame should be Kentucky. Notre Dame is a skilled offensive team. They're a little bit better than we thought. They're a little better defensively. But what they did was don't leave the paint. Don't leave the paint off Severe Willard. Stay inside, help out on everybody else, and let's see whatever they run, you just wait and clog it up. That's what they've done.
And they controlled the tempo
the pace
too.
They control the tempo and the pace of it, which is what you're going to do with them. Because when you do that, he can't play in that game. He can't play in that transition game, which is, when it goes in a half court set, he's limited in that aspect. But and then even Oscar, big fella, Sheboy, he's not a guy you just throw it in. So if half court, you just kind of say, hey, dig on him, help off, and then that relies on Ty, who's been up and down. He's been up and down early. He's figured it out lately. Same thing with Grady. When he's hitting them, he's great, but it's hit or miss. Either he's making them or he's not giving you much else of anything else. Early in the year, he wouldn't even rebound the ball. So they figured it out. They're playing great basketball. They're playing as good as anyone else. But they're just like everyone else too. They got some deficiencies but right now they do seem to be the best team in covering up. Them and Auburn and Gonzaga, I think, are the cream of the crop right now.
Yeah, I think the fact that they've really bought into the idea of getting up and down in transition, Sweeney, and just lean into Severe Wheeler is really good at a couple of things, right? So lean into what he does well, and it also helps. You got the best rebounder in college basketball in the middle. He basically does the job of two people in the paint. I made that point last night, right? You can send an extra guy back to avoid giving up layups because you know that you're going to have two people boxing out Sheboy. You basically just send two guys to the glass on the offensive glass. To the defensive glass, you can have somebody leaking out because he's going to go get it. That's what he does. He's going
to get down the floor on the other end as fast as possible because he's really, really fast and great athlete. I think the thing that stands out for me with Kentucky right now is the best Calipari teams always kind of figure out their role allocation at the right time. And right now, it just feels like everyone's roles are fitting in. And Keon Brooks is not going to put up 27 every night. I'd be shocked if he puts up 27 again, quite frankly. But Sheboy isn't expecting to touch the ball on the block every possession. Ty and Wheeler seem to have a really good chemistry. Grady's happy to sit back and hit shots and be in his role. Brooks has been a really good defender for them this season. Toppin has come off the bench and given them some really nice minutes. He gave great minutes in this game. Mintz has not shot the ball great, but he's steady and knows how to play a role from his time at Creighton. Like every single guy just feels like they understand their role perfectly. And when you add in Kentucky talent to that mix, it's a scary combination.
All right, let's put it to the test. First weekend, second weekend, third weekend on Kentucky, Sweeney. Quickly.
Third weekend.
RC?
Third weekend.
Yeah, I have them. I had them in the Final Four in my preseason Final Four, and I'm going to stick with that. Kansas, RC, first weekend, second weekend, third weekend.
Second weekend.
Sweeney?
Second weekend.
So I think they're going to get knocked out in the first or second round. They end up with a 4 seed and play someone that is going to get a little bit physical with them in the backcourt and get picked off. They have upset written all over them. You know who else has upset written all over them? Alabama. I don't know if I've ever seen a team that was more Jekyll and Hyde than this group. They've lost to Iona. They got blown out by Memphis. They lost to Georgia. Nobody loses to Georgia. You can't lose to this Georgia team. They lost to Missouri. They lost to I'm probably missing on some. I think they lost to Mississippi State.
Davidson.
But they've also Davidson. They lost to Davidson, and they've also beaten Baylor. They've beaten Gonzaga in Seattle, and they've beaten Houston on a game where they might have, should have, could have lost on what could have been a goaltend at the end of the game, but whatever. It's still a win is a win is a win. So RC, what do you make of this Alabama group?
I tell you what, if they're a team with size, it concerns me against them. But if they're motivated and ready to go, those teams, I think they're not so talented they can walk in and just be like, all right, we're so much better than these guys, we're going to win. I think that's what gets them in trouble. But when they're dialed in and they're ready to go, they can beat anybody. They've proven that. But you're right, they're heckle and jive. You don't know. You don't know who's going to show up, which team's going to show up. but they've shown the ability to beat what we talked about. What they beat 3 out of the 4 Final Four teams a year ago.
Oh,
I mean, listen, they're tough. It's just their philosophy the way they play. They're gonna play. They're gonna shoot a ton of threes. They're gonna defend the hell out of you. If you're making threes at the rate they shoot them, like they'll shoot 30 to 40 threes in a game. And if you make a decent number of those, you're gonna win.
Hey, when you watch them play, you're like, man, I should have played for Nate Oates when I was in college.
Oh my gosh, I was sitting there. That's the first thing I thought of. I'm like, man, he got to be fun to play for.
Sweeney, what do you make of them? First weekend, second weekend, third weekend?
It feels like you can't pick second. Like it has to be 1 or 3. I mean, realistically, I think they're probably in that like top 20-ish team range, which means second weekend. So I'm going to give the boring answer to the second weekend team, but they absolutely have the potential to go to a Final Four, and they have the potential to get, beat by 20 by a 12 seed. Like that's just kind of where we're at, right? And they aren't as good defensively as they were last year. I think the thing is they lost Herb Jones being one of the best defenders. He's one of the best defenders in the NBA right now. And I think he was just a wrecker that covered a lot of their woes. And you add in the fact that they've replaced him with a guy in JD, not direct replacement, but replaced him with JD Davison. A lot of those minutes going to JD Davison, who is a really talented kid, but also makes some really bad decisions, just like some real boneheaded decisions. And I think they live with the ups and downs of him and Quinterly, who are both a very up and down player, very Jekyll and Hyde. And as those two go, Alabama goes. And Javon Quinterly played a heck of a ball game against Baylor. The fact that they shot 79% on 2-point field goals against that Baylor defense with all those 6'8" athletic dudes who run around, like chickens with their head cut off and just swat shots all day, like that's crazy impressive. So
that's because they only shot like 5 of them, right? Because everything else is a 3. they go like those numbers are misleading. They go like 4 or 5 of layups, and then the rest of them is just those guys are. They look like Ben Simmons turning in layups, trying to kick it out to somebody to shoot a 3. Like, no, it's fun to watch. It's fun to play ball. I think Juwan Gary has to step up for him. There's no replacing Herb Jones. We know that, but I think Juwan Gary has got to be a guy that kind of defends bigger guys and gets them going, where that was an advantage for them this year, last year. I don't think this year playing against bigger guys it just hurts them. They just can't overcome it the way they did last year. And that was the main reason was just hurt.
All right, let's go to on the Baylor side, because I'm a little bit concerned with them, but I also think it's important to note they did not have LJ Cryer, who has been their most dangerous scorer. James Akinjo has been banged up. Jeremy Sohan's been banged up. RC, let's get through this one pretty quickly. Are you first weekend, second weekend, third weekend on Baylor?
I'm third weekend on Baylor. I think I love what they've shown. I think they'll figure it out. I'm not concerned about them. I'm just not. I think they got great point guard play, seasoned vet. I'm in.
Preseason first team All-American on Rob Dauster's list, James Akinjo. Sweeney, where do you stand on Baylor? First, second, or third weekend?
Second weekend, because they don't have a pro in the backcourt.
Ooh, okay. I'm third weekend on them. I still think they can get to a Final Four. Yeah, they're tough. The leadership's there. The switchability's there. We talked about role allocation. They understand their jobs and what they're supposed to do. They just got to get healthy. I think it's as simple as that. They just got to get healthy. The one thing that I am worried about, though, they have little guards in the backcourt. I think if you play with length and athleticism and size and switchability, that you can kind of get to them a little bit. All right, last one. We got about 30 seconds here. Purdue. Sweeney, I'm going to you first on this one. Putting you on the spot. We talked about him a bunch earlier. You saw him play today. First weekend, second weekend, third weekend.
Second weekend, they don't guard well enough to get to a Final Four. Their number 1 T-rank comp, last year's Iowa team. That's a bad comparison.
I've said that before, man. That's not what you want to be compared to. RC, where are you on Purdue?
I'm the same. I don't think they shoot free throws well enough. That'll hurt them in close games. And like we said this again, my biggest issue with Purdue is whatever way you want to rank them, their second and third, or their first and third, or first and second best player play the same position. That's just tough for me, and I think it's going to catch up with them at the end. They're dominant in that spot. I just wish they were a little better in some of the other areas, like point guard.
Yeah, I think they are the quintessential second weekend team that's going to get lit up by somebody in the Sweet 16 that has a guard that goes off from like 40 points. They made Rob Finney and Xavier Johnson look like the best backcourt. It looked like Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. So that's that's not a good thing. But listen, we got to head to a break here. Coming up next, we're going to tell you who the National Player of the Year in college basketball is.